All right. So, welcome to another episode of Critical Weight Theory, where we just talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. So, I guess today we're going to be talking about job experiences and stuff like that. And I've got a guest that I had on here one time before, Adam Carlson. So, I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself, I suppose.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Adam Carlson. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, and I moved to Michigan, but I've held a wide variety of jobs, including self-employment jobs and jobs where I've moved up in companies pretty quickly, so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
All right. So, what was your first job? I'll start there.
Well, are we saying first official job?
Yeah.
Alright, so the first job I actually got paid from an employer was I was a carryout at Pat's Foods at the grocery store, and I worked my
Yes.
way up to night manager there, so that was pretty cool.
Pat's Foods in the small town of Lance, Michigan, which is what every town in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is, a small town.
Oh yeah, little grocery store, IGA for people that live in the Midwest.
And what sort of experience did you have a good time there or
Well, it was a great experience for me because I got to get some money and I got turned that into a car and I was able to go and visit friends all over the place. So that was pretty cool.
yeah.
And I got to learn a lot of responsibility. And I guess they noticed that I was pretty good at what I was doing because I advanced pretty quick there. I moved up. I turned into a cashier and then a shift manager, and then they made me the night manager and gave me the keys. So must have been
Yeah.
doing something
I
right.
see I'm pretty much the opposite. I've never advanced at most jobs that I've held.
Oh no.
At least not much. Yet still have interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson, so figure that one out.
Right?
There's a little bit of a disparity there. Like I've barely advanced. My first job, you actually were there when I got the phone call. We were in Garden. What is that? Garden, Michigan.
Yeah.
The small town is called. And my uncle had called me, and I got a janitorial job, and that kind of paved the way for my bright future, I suppose you might say. I ended up working at Econo Foods for a while, and that was an eye opening experience. I realized that yes, I do hate work, but that this was going to be a part of my life. Um,
It
so
is kind of
what's
weird though
the
that those early jobs you get kind of form what you do later because of the experience that you get and
oh, yeah?
and
Well,
all that.
there is an element of a caste system. There's a reason that anarchists say that sort of stuff because there's an element of truth to it. Although sometimes you can move beyond it, right?
Right.
Which I
But
think
that's
we
also
both have
moving
done.
beyond your comfort level and like urging you to learn something else, which a lot of people aren't willing to do.
Oh, and you need to take risks and you need to meet the right people. You can't just stay stationary in one place. So, one interesting thing about my uncle who gave me my first job is this is sort of a random aside, but the my uncle seems Italian, or he seemed Italian, but he's actually not. I don't
Right.
think you've ever seen a picture of him before
I
or
don't think
anything.
so.
But
But I know your family is very Finnish.
yeah, yeah. I guess there's a little bit of um what is that Swedish in there as well. At least on my dad's side.
Nice.
And he just I don't know how he even got the phone number over there, but he was smart enough to figure that out. And I worked there for a few years, and let's see, for other jobs I've had, I worked at two different Chinese restaurants. I worked at Shopko, which is a store that no longer exists as a national chain. That was the worst job I've ever had, by the way,
Really?
and that place no longer exists. Oh, I hated it there. I hated it even more than the place that wrongfully fired me. To give you an idea
That's
of
kind of
how bad
crazy.
yeah, it was just soul
What was it
crushing.
about that job that kind of threw you off? Was it like management or the duties they gave you? What was it?
It was, I mean, for starters, I almost don't even need to explain it beyond this, but I basically had three sets of bosses
Oh wow.
because Shopco was its own company, but I worked for the janitorial company that was under Shopco, and that janitorial company worked for Kellermeyer Burgess. So I had like three different sets of bosses. And to give you an idea of how ass backwards things were there, I didn't even know that there was an entire bathroom that I was expected to clean towards the front of the store until I was there for like 5 years or so.
Oh wow.
They didn't even tell me that. So, doesn't that already give you an idea of how bad the place actually was? I
Places where
almost.
the communication is off or the chain of command isn't very direct,
Oh,
I
yeah,
always have a
yeah.
lot of problem in places like that.
And there was somebody who tried to get me fired, by claiming that they went into the ladies' room when I got done, and there were no toilet paper rolls in any of the
Oh
stalls.
wow.
Like, how the hell would I have, And that wasn't true. I always changed the toilet paper rolls. Yet this person still lied, and they were trying to get me fired.
I bet it was during the pandemic and you're taking them selling them on eBay.
No, this was well before the pandemic. This was well before that. So there was not that excuse. So I mean, people were lying and trying to get me fired, and I know I got so dispirited at that job that there were a few times where I basically turned the auto scrubber off, and I
Yeah.
just walked behind it without any water running during the winter time, and nobody even fucking noticed.
Wow.
That was like my little bit of revenge on them or something like that.
And I used to actually kind of enjoy shopping there. They had good stuff.
Well, a lot of people say that they like that place or missed it, but like I just had really bad experiences working there. And well, I guess it's your turn to go over, um, if you've got any work stories. I've kind of went on
Well,
about
before my
this.
official start with jobs, I used to work with my dad. I'd drive around with him and we'd pick up scrap metal and newspaper and we'd go and sell that. And that's kind of what my dad did as a side hustle. And it worked pretty good for him
Oh,
and put a couple bucks in my pocket. And I got, we'd go to the gas station and be like, fill up with whatever you want. And like, oh, yeah. So I'd get out of a big old mug of Coke and I'd be a happy guy.
yeah,
But then after I worked at the grocery store, which was after working with my dad, I moved over to Holiday Gas Station, and that situation was really odd. Immediately, the boss that hired me really liked me, but the actual manager did not like me one bit.
hmm,
And I got fired there under false pretenses, and I got unemployment, and that whole thing was a big old mess. So I kind of rode that unemployment until I was able to find a decent job, and that's when I got into casino, and I was there for like 7 years.
yeah, yeah,
And I started dreading it every day towards the end. But then again, at that point, I was drinking really hard and making a lot of bad life decisions.
sure.
So I lost that job when I was
You're
fired.
not
And
supposed to feed them after midnight, Adam.
right. And after I got fired from there, it's hard to get hired in this town once you're fired from somewhere like that, a higher profile job. You can't put down a good reference or anything like that. So I ended up getting a hobby job. I took on a position writing some articles about the Minnesota Vikings on a site for no pay, just something to do to keep me busy, to keep me from going insane, or more insane, I guess I should say. But I needed something to do, and within 3 months, the person I was working with there had a personal issue that they needed to attend to, and could no longer perform the duty as the head editor of the site. So when they left, I got the email and they said, "Hey, do you want to do it?" I'm like, "All right." So I moved up there really fast too, and now I'm still there, and it's 12 years later. And in that
Yeah,
time, they've trusted me to add more sites. They put me in their Hall of Fame. I mean, I can't say enough good things about what they've done for me. So I'm still there right now, but I am looking for other opportunities, and I'm open to that. I did kind of exclude when I went to college and I worked in the chemistry stock room, but then again, like I said, with all the drinking, college is kind of a blur.
yeah, yeah. Well, for me, how I got started in writing was you put out a general call out for Undead Walking, which is the Walking Dead fan site, and I was one of the people who responded. I was like, "What the hell? I'll give this a shot." I was looking to actually take some chances with, you know, the places I was applying for, and sure enough, I got in there, and I can't say I'm like a millionaire or anything like that.
No,
It's
but
not
you
like
got right
that,
into a paid
but
position,
it
which is
has
really weird
given
for
me
Fansided.
what's that?
You got right into a paid position immediately at Fansided, which is kind of interesting. Because a
Well,
lot of times it starts as a hobby, unpaid position, but you got right in there, and I know your content wasn't like fresh and up to date content, so it probably didn't get a ton of views, but your insight was always very welcome.
yeah. Well, the thing about writing is that I don't do it for the money to begin with. I kind of do it because, well, it's not just that I like writing. It's also I like talking to different. I like interviews these days. That's like one of the main things that I try to do. Talk to interesting people. So like I've said, I've spoken to Neil deGrasse Tyson for 20 minutes. That was pretty awesome. I brag about that. I know the crap out of people by mentioning that.
Yeah, I've seen
But
you talk to royalty and
yeah, I
people that
talked to the
are
Prince of Cambodia, or a
major
Prince of Cambodia,
social groups
which
and
is
stuff like
nuts.
that. Big stuff.
I talked to a transgender New York Times journalist who was embedded with the Taliban. That's
See, that's the
also
kind of
right
stuff
up
that's got to be
there.
so interesting.
And I talked to Marla Gibbs, who played, well, she starred on the, boy, now I can't think of the show.
Jefferson's, right?
Yeah, the Jeffersons. There we go. She played the maid on the Jeffersons. So I've talked to some interesting people, and that kind of matters to me a little bit more than the money aspect, although it'd be nice to make more cash, of course. We live in a capitalistic society where you always need to be on the lookout for extra cash.
I have
Um,
been fortunate to get by with what I've been able to make from writing over this time, and honestly, I am surprised I'm able to with how much things cost these days that I am able to take a job that most people consider a side hustle and turn that
yeah.
into a job that I can use to actually exist and pay my bills.
Well, yeah, you do have the skills for that, definitely. So that's something you can pat yourself on the shoulder for. Not everyone makes a living at it. Some people they just write one article or two a month and that's it, and they think the cash is going to roll right in
Oh
that
yeah.
way, and that's typically not how it works.
One of the biggest challenges with a job like that is the self motivation. You got to keep yourself going. You got to be
Yeah,
willing to work when you don't really want to, but yet there's nobody there to help you or push you in that direction. You got to want to do
yeah.
it yourself, and that
Well,
can be
I
tough.
find it important to actually schedule things because you're probably going to want to write for multiple sites if you're going down this road, and that's what I do. I write for you know 5, 6, maybe 7 different sites, and I have a schedule and I try to keep to it. It's sometimes impossible to do that, but otherwise you'll go insane. You won't know what pieces to work on next or whatever. It's if you're writing for multiple places and you've got multiple different articles going on. So it's a good idea to stay organized, and I can demystify a lot of this process for people out there. You don't even need to be that skilled of a writer. I mean, that's kind of a deep dark secret to say. You don't need to be an elite. You don't need to come from a rich and powerful family. You don't need to have the biggest connections of all time. And
Well, as an editor on a bunch of those sites, I've had a lot of people with a lot of like a lack of experience try to come through and be writers, and I have worked with them, and I've made quite a few of them better writers from my what I've been able to help them with.
yeah, yeah,
But there's also people that aren't willing to accept that criticism or those kind
sure,
of comments, and those people are the hardest to work with because they are not willing to budge one bit on what they do and what they know, and they're going to say I know better than you, and I'm like, well, I've been doing this 7 years. This is what they want.
yeah, yeah. And I haven't had that many problems, but I've had some problems with various sites, maybe promoting an article in a way that it shouldn't have been promoted or whatever,
Right.
and stuff like that. So as for another job that I've had that was this pretty crazy. I'm gonna have to change the name of this place because lawsuits could happen. Could
Oh
happen
no.
if I actually name. But anyway, let's just call it Woodgill.
Okay.
I don't know if you can figure out what that place is that I'm talking about. But anyway, I was a donor greeter at Woodgill for about 2 years, and that's the place that I was wrongly fired from. And what
Oh, I
happened
remember
there
you
is,
were working there. Oh yeah.
yeah, I actually liked the job. In fact, I would go back there if I knew that it would be any better than it was. You know, there were good things about working that job. I actually had fun at that place more than I did at Shopco. But anyway, what happened there is when I first got there, we were supposed to load up the trucks right toward the end of
Right.
the night, and there's this ratchet strap thing that you use to basically secure the cargo on those trucks that they ship out in the morning or whatever. And it turned out somebody else was doing that for maybe like half a year that I worked there. And
Right.
then I got in trouble because I wasn't doing that. And so I got written up for it, right?
Yeah.
And then they, after that, somebody finally trained me in on how to do that. And then I was doing that pretty much just fine after the training. I knew
Right.
how to secure the cargo with the ratchet straps in those trucks. And anyway, at one point, it turns out one night when I didn't even work there, I didn't even work the closing shift, someone had failed to use the ratchet strap thing to
Oh.
secure the cargo. And I got blamed for it somehow, even though I didn't even work the closing shift.
Wow.
So they were trying to shift the responsibility and blame onto me for that. I mean, what more do I need to explain? I didn't even work that final shift. It shouldn't have been
Right.
up to me. Should have been up to the other door person who was there and the manager and whoever was driving the truck. I was done at 4:30 p.m. and there was somebody who was supposed to work the door until like 8 or something like that.
Right.
Um but but they tried to blame me because of the previous time I was written up for it, right? So
Right.
they tried to pin me on that. And they even tried, not only was I, fired for something I really had no responsibility for, you know, they they tried to challenge my unemployment, you know, which was very bad. And somebody
Right.
even got demoted for that because they knew that I could sue them because I could potentially prove that I didn't work that closing shift. So
Right.
somebody actually got demoted for that, and it could have been an expensive lawsuit if I was litigious. So thankfully, here's the thing: they didn't even try to provide evidence of it to the unemployment people because they didn't have the evidence. They knew that I would win that argument, so they didn't even follow through on challenging my unemployment, and that person got demoted. And it's a little bit of dark history of Woodgill.
Yeah, quite a mess there.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you still doing anything at the movie theater, or are you all done with that?
Yeah, yeah, I still work at the movie theater. Yeah, I work there 3 days a week now. I used to work four, but now I'm there for 3 days. And someday if you want to check out a movie or something, that'd be fine if you're
I
ever
do
in
like
the
movies.
area. Yeah. Let's see.
What's the
Well,
last
it's
one
your
we went
turn
to?
to.
That Child's Play remake, right?
Yeah, yeah, we did go to see that. I actually wrote a fairly positive review of that years later, fairly recently. I had to defend it because some people,
Yeah,
they
there's a
trash
lot of
talk
hate
it.
for that one out there.
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't think it was that
definitely.
bad.
Well, you know what? Even the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, I actually saw that movie twice in the theaters. I'm one of the few people who probably did. And here's the reason why. I thought it was hilariously over serious. Like it tried too hard to be dark, and I just found that funny.
As long as you don't go see it more times than we saw Dirty Work.
Yeah, Dirty Work is a classic for sure.
How many times
So
did we
do
see
you?
it? Like
Yeah,
7 or 8 in the theaters?
yeah, yeah. Do you have any more work related stories? I suppose once we're
Well, most of my stuff from work is kind of wild, or not that tame. I have never like walked out on a job or been super told off by a manager or anything like that. My work experience is kind of boring, and I tend to stay at places for 7 to 10 years, so I don't have a lot of really wild stories like someone that bounces around and does a lot of crazy stuff. But I am still looking for jobs, and I've been trying to learn ways to beef up my resume and letters of interest and stuff like that to seem like more of a better candidate for some people, but I haven't
well.
had a lot of luck with that yet.
One thing I'm planning to do, I'm planning to look for more international jobs because
Ooh.
I might have to move at some point with the way things are going. I mean, I'm trying to keep this apolitical, but things are getting pretty nuts. I might
Yeah, things
have
could
to
get
weigh my
very
options.
different here soon.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people out there are gonna find that out whether they want to or not. Um, so I'm weighing my options as far as that goes. Um,
But my first real job there at the Pat's Foods, I met a lot of people that I stayed in connection with for a long time. And that first job, there's so many things you'll remember from it, whether it's little things like making fake, like little golf courses in the back, or,
yeah,
making friends with people and going on road trips. Those are the kind of things that stick with you forever. So, I mean, if you do have that first job and you are making those connections and having a good time, those are the kind of things that can last a lifetime with you if you are careful with them.
yeah. So what were the biggest life lessons you've learned from work? It's a big question, I know, but
It's it's a loaded question too because you can say like, how to work well, how to delegate, or it kind of really depends on what level. Because
yeah,
the number one thing people always want, and this isn't just workplace related, is communication. If you
yeah,
have an issue, tell your manager, tell your supervisor before it becomes a problem.
exactly. And well, when I worked at those Chinese restaurants. It was kind of I'll give you an idea of like what you had to do. Like I was a dishwasher over there,
Yeah.
but I was also in charge of making the rice, and I was also in charge of some food prep. I mean, not in charge, but they assigned, kind of in charge of it in a
And I
way.
don't know how many people here go to a lot of Chinese restaurants, but even if you order a small dish, they're like 7 or 8 plates come out with a small dish.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people they go to a Chinese restaurant, they might think that everybody back there is like Chinese, but
That's what I like to
I was a
imagine.
white guy and I was in charge of making the rice in two different local Chinese restaurants. And a lot of people, they might think I won't even eat at a restaurant if it doesn't have Chinese people in the in charge of the rice or something. But guess what? You might be in for a surprise.
Right.
Some of these places they just leave that all up to the dishwasher. You know.
Yeah, that's a weird variety of jobs for someone. I wash the dishes and make the rice.
Oh yeah. And I wasn't very well paid either. I'll just put that out there. For somebody, rice is a very important part of a Chinese restaurant, right? It's one of the things you
Oh,
first think
absolutely.
of. So I mean, you think you'd be a little bit better paid once it's such a big. Well, I guess you would think the cooks in general would be well paid,
See,
but
I'm getting old, so when we're talking about like getting paid good money and stuff now, like I see, I'll be driving past Burger King, and it'll be like starting at $14 an hour. I'm like, in my
yeah,
mind, I'm like, what? Because when I started at that grocery store, I was making 4 and a quarter an hour.
yeah, yeah. Well, the times have changed for sure.
They sure have.
And well, speaking of Burger King, have you noticed that like some Burger Kings are better than others? Like some
Oh, without
fast
a
food is
doubt.
better than others. It's kind of crazy.
My local Burger King, the food is pretty good, but they always seem to forget something in the order. The
Yeah,
quality assurance is not there.
yeah. Well,
And again,
the
when we're talking about jobs, I admire people that work in fast food because I don't want to do it.
no,
It's a job that just seems hard, thankless, and not paid enough in my mind. Anyway,
yeah, yeah,
it's not something on my list of jobs that I would ever really want to do.
yeah. But you really can tell a difference. Tell the difference when somebody's actually trying to do a good job versus somebody's just you know slapping some stuff together and
Right.
who cares at all about it. I guess that's
Well, a lot
true
of
with
things too for those jobs are you got to make food, you got to do everything fast. You
yeah,
got to be
yeah,
fast. You got to be speedy. There's no time to stop and chit chat or make sure the cheese is lined up well on the patty.
yeah,
Because sometimes you get that cheese way off to the side or something like that, and you want to complain, but you also know the person back there is doing what they have to do to get through it,
yeah. They're just trying to get a paycheck, you know,
right?
and like a lot of people are, people wonder why people do drugs, but sometimes it's because of jobs like that. They do it to make it through the day.
Yeah, my sister used to tell me about when she used to work at Burger King and she was put on the spec board and they'd be like, okay, you have 22 seconds to make this chicken sandwich. It's like, what?
Yeah, 22 seconds is not a lot of time.
No, and to put those kind of expectations on people can be a lot of stress. And in today's world where we have a lot more focus on mental health, pushing people like that is not always good.
No. Well, I mean, it's it's really telling that a lot of jobs end up replaced by machines. It really kind of shows you what these places actually think of the employees. Like if only your job could be done by a machine, we would easily replace you, you
Well,
know?
you bring up a really important and interesting question here because with my job for writing, AI already has kind of tried replacing writing in some ways, and some
Oh yeah.
big sports outlets have been caught using AI to write sports articles
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
and been fined to
And
do so. But where I'm at, it's all people writing, and I could have AI write an article for me and put that out, but where's the passion in that? Where's the knowledge? Where's the experience? That human touch is so important.
well, for me, one of the biggest problems with that is AI often gets facts wrong,
Oh
and it
yeah,
it overuses certain words. Like they're telltale signs that things have been written by AI. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
so if you are out there and you're cheating and using AI, you still have to go over your articles anyway to
Could you
make
imagine
sure that
growing up in today's age and having an English paper due and being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have AI write it"?
yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are doing that already.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the smarter ones are going to be able to get away with it, but they're still
And
going to
those
have to
newer
put
phones
in a
where you can
lot of
like put
work.
a math question on your phone, take a picture of it, and it gives you the answer.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
what?
yeah. Well, you know what? When it comes to math, I think I think I would have easily cheated if I could have. I'll just say it. I'll just say it like that.
But yeah,
I
technology is definitely changing how our jobs are and what we do, and it's never going to replace like the cashier. Well, I guess it is kind of replacing the cashier at the gas station or a grocery store or whatever, and writers. But there are a lot of jobs out there that just can't be replaced by robots or AI, and this is the kind of jobs right now where you got to feel the most safe because there are jobs out there that if you are currently holding, you should probably train in some other areas just to make sure you can have
oh
a
yeah,
job down the road.
oh yeah, and plus it always pays to have a side hustle anyway.
Oh yeah.
To have more than one type of work that you're ready to do, and
Anytime you have a chance like to branch out, you probably should because pigeonholing yourself in today's workforce is not a good idea
no, it's
unless you have
definitely
a
not
really
good.
specialized job that you are working up in. Like if you're a business manager and you're running a hotel or something like that, keep running your hotel, do a great job, and that way if you move on from there, you can go run another hotel.
Yeah, yeah. What I was gonna think as far as like AI and artwork is concerned,
Oh
I
God.
use AI artwork all the time. In fact, today I was having AI generate some twisted songs for me. Like I had one idea of Bob Dylan goes into the bathroom and looks down, and there's a spitting cobra down there, and
Oh
he's
wow.
and he sings about it.
There
So
have
I,
been a
I
lot
think
of
AI
like
can be fun and crazy.
musicians and sports people that have been using AI images to promote their things, and boy, a lot of people do not like that.
Oh yeah, they don't. Well, in my case, I don't have the time to make the visual art myself, the time or the inspiration, so
And
I'd
I'm sure
resort
you
to
would have
AI.
no problem hiring an artist if you could, but some
Yeah,
artists are kind of pricey.
yeah. I don't have the money either. I don't have the inspiration, the time to do my own stuff, or the money to pay other people. So guess what? I'm lazy, and few people listen to my albums anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter that much in the grand
But I have
scheme of
seen like
things.
even on X now, formerly Twitter, a lot of the artwork that goes up on there is taken and sold into computer generation to be able to feed AI, and that's one reason why a lot of graphic artists have left that
Oh,
platform.
sure, sure. Yeah, it's a very challenging world because on the one hand, I don't want to be completely anti AI, right?
Right.
Because there is potential for creative stuff there, and some videos on YouTube that have AI are creative and or hilarious. Well, both sometimes. And well, I just said and or. I just covered that ground already. Shit. But anyway, um, but at the same time, there is a risk of over relying on it, and I think society is going to end up walking a fine line. I mean, there's one extreme that's like going totally Ted Kaczynski on it, and another side that's probably too open to embracing it to the point where people even forget the skills that go into making original artwork in the first place.
Right. You don't want to take those writers, those artists, those poets or whatever, and take away those that creativity, their ability to create jobs because they can't make any money writing, painting, drawing, sculpting, whatever they're doing.
Oh, and another good area for AI where I definitely use it with zero shame is when it comes to transcribing things. And if you have the right prompt, you can save a lot of time if you get it to like get rid of repeated words which happen in a conversation.
One of the worst things is back when I used to be on Undead Walking and I'd do a lot of interviews. I used to go to Walker Stalker Con in Chicago and I'd interview people and I'd get home and I'd have to transcribe it and I listened and wrote down every word. I did it all
Yeah.
by hand myself and that was not fun.
Oh no, transcribing is that's why I normally like to do email interviews, although I'm kind of moving further away from that as time progresses because a lot of people prefer these Zoom call type scenarios.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't
They're
know
quick,
why.
they're
I always
easy.
worry about people like checking out, like my extra chins or a zit on my nose or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And with lighting like this, the bags under my eyes look even darker than they actually normally would, maybe. So I look like I just got in a boxing match with somebody or something
You,
because
you
my
kind of
the
do. I was
bags.
going to ask if you got a shiner
No, no, no. That's just how they look. Like
because I don't know you to be a fighter.
no. Well, I have been in fights, but that was way back in my high school days, pretty much. I avoid people too much to get into that many physical fights.
It's kind of weird to think there are jobs out there for people to just fight.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was that recent fight that I absolutely did not watch. I made
I
it a point
watched
to
it.
not watch. I made it a point to not watch it.
Yeah, you are one of the few people out there that did not watch it. It's wild. Wild
Yeah.
numbers.
Yep. Well, we've been talking for 34 minutes. I suppose we could wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to throw in here or
Uh,
whatever?
when you do get a job, if you don't currently have one, make sure you respect yourself enough to ask for a raise if you deserve one, and to do your job well enough that it casts a good light on you. Because that's going to be major for you moving forward. Even if you're not planning on staying where you're at and moving up in that business, try to find a way to market yourself as a product.
Oh yes, and if you're a musician, I'm gonna throw this in here. If you're a musician, um, look into the possibility of using your own. Well, how should I word this? But try not to rely on a major label if you can, because I think a lot of the artistic community, so to speak, is moving past that in music anyway. So I think musicians should try to set up networks that allow them to tour together without major label support. I think that could be the way that it happens in the future.
There have been a lot of musicians making their name for themselves, whether it's TikTok or SoundCloud or wherever they're going.
Yeah,
It's not always through a major label discovering them like back in the old days. You don't need
yeah.
that big push because let's be honest, when was the last time you actually sat down and watched a music video?
It's been a while. Like MTV. Well, I mean, I've I've I shouldn't say it's been a while. I mean, what do you mean watch a music video like on TV?
Yeah.
I watched them on YouTube.
I don't even watch a full one on YouTube. I'll see like clips of them on TikTok or something
Yeah.
like that. But like I don't go and be like, oh, what's that new Electric Cowboy video? I gotta watch that.
Oh no, well, the days of the big music video premiere are largely over because MTV's no longer a musical entity.
Well, you got the
But back in the
my
day,
point is that these major labels are pouring these money into advertising and videos back in the day, and those things aren't what they need to be anymore these days. That time has changed greatly.
yeah, it's kind of sad because back when MTV was big, I used to actually sometimes schedule my life around like watching an MTV video. I'd
Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, I'd watch like the premiere of a Nirvana video. See, I got mixed up because I was saying Nirvana there
Oh,
and
I know what
Pierre.
you mean. Yeah, if they
But
had a big
I
video
watched
coming
the
out from a
premiere of
musician I was really
Blade.
interested in, I would make it a point to watch it.
Yeah, shit. I watched some videos that of bands that I wasn't even that big of a fan of, just
Right?
just because they were playing, and it's just kind of a sad thing that those are no longer as big, and MTV decided to just become reality TV trash all the time.
I will also say that if you are working a job and you are frustrated by management or your bosses or whatever, I know you can't ignore that completely, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt and kind of keep your head down and do your job. And I know that's a rough thing to say these days with how people should be spoken out and kind of do their thing, but I mean, if you want to keep your job, you kind of have to play a little ball.
Yeah, there are definitely times where you do have to just take what you have and try to be grateful for it. As pathetic as that probably sounds.
It does, and I hated saying it even because
Yeah,
I want people to be vocal. I want people to express when they're not happy or when they're not pleased with the situation at all. That's something that people should be willing to do or able to do, but in a lot of workplaces you aren't.
it's often a good idea to get things set up first before you make a change. Um, always be on the lookout for new jobs. You should consider applying even when you're already working at a place.
Exactly.
Even if you're not really looking for work, you should still kind of look for work a little bit. And well, on that note, I
Yeah, keeping
guess
your options open, and especially if there's different pay and levels involved,
yeah,
is such a smart thing to do. I'm actually taking a class right now on Wednesdays called Bridges Out of Poverty, Getting Ahead in a Getting By World. And I've been getting a lot of really cool insight out of that as far as what I can do for jobs and, financial changing my life. And
yeah.
I don't know, it's only meeting once a week for like 2, maybe 3 hours, but those even any kind of education to make things better, I am all in on.
Oh, and one speaking of education, one thing that got me out of my Shopco rut was I finally took some people's advice and I took a chance and I started substitute teaching for a few years. And that it was easier than I thought it was going to be. There were times where it was more fun than I thought it was going to be, even though there are drawbacks. Um, my point isn't so much that you should try being a substitute teacher, but sometimes just take a chance, do something you didn't think you were going to ever do. Because when
Right.
I did that, I was actually a gym teacher on a few occasions. I was a math teacher, even though I suck at math. You know,
That's funny
um,
because I in college I was a math major with a minor in marketing, and now I'm writing and blogging and editing.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just not completely related at all to what I thought I was going to be doing.
No. Well, I mean, I thought as far as career paths, I thought I might be a commercial artist. I at one point considered uh, building musical instruments, which I could probably figure out because I did, believe it or not, I repaired an amp before back in the day when I was in between. It was either elementary school or high school. I kind of
Why
semi
do I
repaired
kind of
one.
remember you working on a violin?
I don't know if I ever worked on a um Oh, well, that wasn't me repairing. I had I've got like an instrument called an arpeggione, and I took that to get some repairs done. I still haven't used that, even though I spent some of my COVID money on it.
Gotcha.
Um, the most expensive musical instrument I have cost me $1,500, which isn't that cheap.
Don't forget you are a musical instrument.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. How come you don't play a musical instrument once we're talking about this?
I play Rock Band on my guitar, and I have a cat keyboard where
Okay.
I meow through songs, but otherwise
Yeah.
it's another one of those things that I just don't have talent for. I've tried putting together like drum loops and things like that, and it ain't me. I can't do it.
Well, you know what? If you're ever going to try, one of the simplest and easiest ways is to try synthesizer, because that kind of it almost like teaches you how to play it while you're playing it in a way. Like there's a certain logic that's not just it's different from piano because the synth like it kind of talks back to you more than a regular piano does because it makes these weird sounds sometimes, right? You can have different settings that create weird sounds.
And I'm a
So
big
it's
fan of like synth rock and 80s,
yeah,
synth music. So I mean, that's right up my alley.
it can kind of draw you in if you're into hearing experimental sounds because you can screw around with different knobs and different settings and whatnot, and it's a little more interesting than standard piano, I think, for a lot of people. So that's what I would recommend to people out there if you're looking to get into music. That in the past I would have recommended guitar, but since I've owned a synthesizer, it's it seems like one of the best ways to be introduced to a musical instrument because
And
you
what
can
we're
make all
giving
these
suggestions for people
wavy
getting started.
sounds.
If you want to get started in writing, I highly recommend that anytime you sit down, whether it's an opinion piece or whether you're writing a factual piece, sit down and do a little outline first, especially if you have trouble staying focused when you're writing. An outline can go a long, long way.
Yep. I sometimes call them skeletons or something like that,
Oh, yeah. I used to have
because
one writer that
it's
was all over the place all the time, and I kept recommending to that person. I was like, hey, do an outline. You'll stay more focused. And you could tell when that person turned in an article and they used an outline and when they didn't. It was obvious.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we've been chatting for a while now, and uh, just let me know when you want to see a movie when you're in town, and or if you want to
Sounds
go to
good.
trivia night or something like that.
Yeah, we'll make
And
that happen.
yeah, so all right, I'm gonna stop the recording, and you have a rockin' Thanksgiving that's coming up.
Oh, I will. You too. And I hope your
Yeah.
family and everybody's doing great.
Oh yeah. All right.
Catch you later.
See ya.